education. For us today, we speak about education. So today we're going to receive information or on informal education for refugee in Indonesia, and also information on obstacles for refugee to gain access to formal education in Indonesia. And also we're going to receive together information about actual practice of access to education for refugee in Indonesia. As we know, education is very, very important for refugee in Indonesia, specialized for kids. So this webinar series are target for refugee and asylum seeker in Indonesia. However, other participants who are not refugee and asylum seeker who want to understand this webinar also allowed to participate for today. Welcome everyone. Yes, participant, please mute yourself before everything. For today, also, we have the first speaker, Mr. Hendrik from UNHCR Office, Indonesia, Protection Society, community based. He's going to share with us information about access to formal education so far for refugee and also other issues. The second speaker, also we have Ibu Tanti. They going to bring for us information about education. She is senior officer or specialized education and advocacy zakat. We would like to hear from here about the experience advocating access to education for refugee in Indonesia, specialized refugee children. As we know, Dompet Duafa take care about the children. And also, I wanna remind you, it will be, there is question and answer after we finish the two presentation. So we can ask direct by chatting in the books, or after we finish, you can raise your hand. They give you permission, our technical, to ask your question direct. So let us say welcome, by Hendrik and Ibu Tanti. Before that, as we know, Siwaka is organization all time empower the refugee to raise awareness and let the refugee know about the right in Indonesia, about different issues. So before we start, let us have brother Julio from Suaka, coordinator of legal empowerment division of Suaka also. Please give us remark.
Okay, thank you very much, Shoki. Thank you for your introduction and also for letting me give the remarks. Thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Julio, and I'm the Legal Empowerment Division from SWACA, Legal Empowerment Coordinator Division in SWACA. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much for coming and sparing your time during the post-working hour in having this discussion together with SWACA. So SWACA is a civil society organization who is focusing on the refugee rights protection. We have been working since 2012, and then we have been legally registered in 2018. So it's been quite some time. Based on what Shoki has stated before, some of you might already knew that Indonesia is not signatory to 1951 Refugee Convention, nor its optional, nor its special protocol. However, that does not mean that Indonesia does not have any responsibilities for refugees who are staying in Indonesia. Because as a matter of fact, Indonesia has ratified, has signed, and also adopted some of the international human rights conventions, in which they also ensure the rights and the basic rights of refugees as well when they're staying in Indonesia. So in particular, there is a basic right that needs to be fulfilled for refugees, which is the right to education. The right to education has remained a challenge for so many years, ever since the refugees mobilizations had increased in anywhere throughout the world, but also in Indonesia. So most of the refugees who are arrived in Indonesia or in anywhere else, most of them do not have documentation. And without having documentation, it leads to a discrimination. So most refugees cannot access education because they do not have documentation. And it is a form of discrimination because some of the refugees, they escape, they flee the origin country because they are being persecuted. And in most cases, they don't have enough time to gather all of their documents. And then even taking, booking a flight, getting their visa, they do not have that privilege when they're escaping their countries. So it's such a shame that many governments around the world still discriminate refugees because they don't have documentation and they don't provide the access to basic rights such as education. With the protected time of refugees getting durable solution and also, let's say, having resettlement into the third country who ratified and also a party to 1951 convention, it means that many refugees are staying longer in Indonesia as a transit countries. That also means that the government should provide better right fulfillment for refugees while they're staying in Indonesia. So today in our webinar, we have two really excellent speakers. One is from UNHCR Indonesia, Mas Hendrik, and then the other one is from Dompet Duafa, Mbak Tanti. So both of these amazing speakers will be explaining their experience, the practices, the good practices, and the advocacy that have been done on getting the access to education for refugees in Indonesia. So I hope that this discussion provides a better insight and new information for everyone here. And for a quick note, this is actually targeted for refugees. So for those of you who are not refugees, you will be given a new perspective of thinking and looking at an issue in refugee perspective. So I think that will also be great for anyone, Indonesian and maybe other foreigners who are here as well to listen to this webinar. So that is all. I hope you'll enjoy the webinar today. Thank you, Shoki, back to you.
Thank you, Brother Julio, for good remark. Appreciate and also appreciate everyone from Suaka. They working behind you for technical. So let us use our time to get knowledge from Hendrik, the first speaker. So please, Mr. Hendrik from UNHCR office, the floor yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pa Shauki. Can I get a mic check? Is my voice clear?
Yes, please, it's very clear. Go ahead.
Thank you. And let me start by sharing the screen. And can you please let me know if you have seen the screen?
Yep, we see the screen, very clear.
Thank you very much, Pa Shauki. And colleagues from UNHCR, we are happy to be participating in this webinar series organized by SWACA. We thank SWACA for all the efforts that they have made to provide education, socialization, knowledge to refugees and those who are concerned with refugee-related matters. And at this opportunity, we are glad to be invited by SWACA to share on what we can tell you about enrollment of refugee informal education in Indonesia. So we'll go through some legal background, not so long, but also we'll give you some experiences that we are familiar with, and also to give you also some information on what we are doing or we're trying to achieve also. So that's my opening. So let me start with, I think this is very clear for everyone. I think everyone knows why education is important. Education is a basic human rights. It is in the 1989 Convention on the Rights of a Child and many other international instruments, and of course also in the Refugee Convention. Although, as mentioned before, that Indonesia has not ratified the Refugee Convention. However, that does not mean that Indonesia can choose to ignore access to education. And in fact, Indonesia has taken steps to ensure refugees have access to education. More on that later on. But of course, there are many benefits of education. Of course, it strengthens the community, it protects the youth, the refugee children from negative behaviors, empowers refugees by giving the knowledge and skills to have a productive, independent life, and also gives the opportunity for refugees to rebuild their life and also their community, and contribute to the well-being not only of their own community but also the host community that currently welcomes them, in this case in Indonesia. And for a global picture, the number of refugees enrolled in education, as you can see, it's for the primary school level is 63% compared to the global statistics of 91%. And you can see also the numbers is for the secondary and higher education. And even for higher education, the number, of course, is very small compared to the global population. So this is just some statistics to give you an overview of the situation of refugee education globally. Now, what about in Indonesia? In Indonesia, based on our statistics, we have approximately 2,700 refugee children of school age, and around 500 to 600, so 22% or so, are enrolled in primary and secondary education. So what I'm talking about enrolled in primary and secondary education here is formal education, but also non-formal education, which I will go in a little bit more detail later on. Now, here's just to give you some overview of the different international instruments related to education. You can read a bit about this in the UNESCO publication on the right to education. So there is the UNESCO Convention, and there's the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the ICCPR, Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. These are the conventions that has been ratified or accepted by Indonesia, as you can see on the screen, when the convention or international instrument was accepted or ratified by Indonesian government. There are also, of course, related to refugees, the New York Declaration for Refugee and Migrants. You may have heard about this. This was adopted by UN General Assembly in 2019. And this declaration, of course, pinpoints education as a critical element when it comes to the international response to refugee. And of course, it's the global commitment in the Sustainable Development Goal, number 4, which is on education. And the principle of Sustainable Development Goal, of course, is no one is left behind. No one includes stateless persons, internally displaced, and also refugee. So these are the international commitments, the regulations, the instruments when it comes to education. And if we look at the Indonesian domestic legislation or instruments, it's clearly mentioned in a number of instruments, starting from the Constitution of Indonesia, also in the human rights law, and also in the child protection law. And if you go into detail, of course, the National Education System Law and the subsequent regulation regulates how foreigners can also be enrolled into the Indonesian education system. And of course, the most recent instrument is the circular note issued by the Ministry of Education in 2019, which is regarding the enrollment of refugee children into the formal education. Of course, the refugee children itself has to have a document issued by UNHCR, and also upon completion, a statement letter can be issued by the provincial or district education office or by the school to confirm the passing of the class or the level of the school. So this is the most, I guess, significant development that we have. But even prior to the circular note, the refugee children has been able to enroll in the different schools, both when I talk about schools, again, it's formal or non-formal school, both public schools or in private schools. So if we look at the National Education System, which is the law number 20 of 2003, it talks about all the different formal education levels, starting from the early childhood, primary school, junior high school, senior high school, and of course the higher education, university. So this is something that is already regulated and made clear in the national education system. Now, besides the non-formal, besides the formal education, there is also what is regulated in the same law, what is called non-formal education. Now, it's important to note that the result of the non-formal education, of course, can be considered equivalent or equal of the result of the formal education, of course, after the examination that is being done by approved government entity. This is clearly written. So there are some people who does not attend the formal education, they attend non-formal education and receive the appropriate diploma, and this diploma is considered equal. Now, this is what we simplify, we call it the diploma equivalency certification, the package A, package B, and package C. Now, of course, when we talk about package A, that's the diploma equivalency of a primary school. So a person who attends this will receive the diploma that is equal to a primary school. And similarly for package B, which is for the junior high school, and package C is for senior high school. So going back again, in Indonesia, primary school is grade 1 to 6, from grade 7 to 9, and grade 10 to 11 for senior high school. Now, how can refugee enroll in education in Indonesia? Now, there are different ways that refugee can enroll in education, formal education, or even non-education in Indonesia. Number one, of course, is through UNHCR and our implementing partners, CRS, who then, of course, work with the partner named Human Initiative. They can help to enroll refugee children at formal school. And there has been recent development where we have also other partners, such as Church World Service or CWS, who can also help to enroll refugee children at formal school. Now, if you look back at the National Education System law, it states that to enter formal education, of course, the foreign citizen has to meet the language capabilities and other requirements to allow them to enter into the formal education. So with our partners, there are preparation class offered. And today also in this webinar, there is Dompet Duafa, colleague Ibu Tanti, so she can explain, of course, a little bit more on the preparation class and all the other education support also offered by Dompet Duafa. So if you are a refugee, if you're a parent of a refugee, and if you're interested to attend the formal education, then of course you can contact the Human Initiative hotline or contact UNHCR, and we can organize you to reach the right person. Now, if you are older than the minimum or the maximum age accepted for a particular level of school, of course, there is the opportunity to attend the non-formal education, the packet A, B, or C, the package A, B, or C. And with this system, of course, you will get the certificate, and then the certificate is considered equal to the certificate or diploma received through formal education. So if you're older, but you still missed or you don't have any formal diplomas, we still encourage you to consider the non-formal education system, which at least allows you to have a formal, at least have a diploma that you can use either in the wherever the solution may take you, whether it's back to your own original country of origin or to another third country solution, or perhaps during your stay in Indonesia while waiting for a long-term solution. Another way that you can enroll in education in Indonesia, of course, is through our operational partners. We do have some refugee children who are enrolled in schools supported by the Buddha Suci Foundation. And also we have our larger partner, IOM Indonesia. They also support to enroll refugee children in many different schools throughout Indonesia, in Jakarta and surrounding areas, and also areas outside it. And sometimes the refugee, of course, through their own initiative, they approach school because they have they feel that education is important for a child. They may have their own support system, and they may be able to get a scholarship from the school that they approach. So sometimes the refugee are able to approach the school and get enrolled with at their own. Now, school fees, of course, is a concern. If you go through UNHCR and partners, it will be covered. Sometimes if you choose or you go on your own, or you found a school, or maybe a school found you, there could be full or partial scholarship offered by the school themselves. Now, prior to working in Jakarta, I worked for 9 years in Kupang. And besides a number of schools that refugee children attend, we had around 3 or 4 refugee children who attend the private schools. They found the schools on their own. Some they paid on their own the school fees. Some is scholarship by the school themselves. So there are many different options. And what UNHCR can do is to help to communicate with the school if the school is not certain about the legality of having refugee children in the school. Now, let's talk about the different gaps and challenges, barriers for refugees to attend formal education. Number one, of course, is to get the formal diploma. As some of you may have known and understood, formal diploma in Indonesia, you need to be registered in the national education system, and you will have a national student ID number. But to have that also, you need the Indonesian unique ID number, which is quite challenging because at the moment, refugees not have this national Indonesian unique ID number, which is found in our ID card, Indonesian ID card. However, I'm happy to announce that we had 2 success stories, 2 refugees attending early childhood education in Medan, SOS Children Village. The school principal was able to register them to have the national student ID number, and so they are properly registered, and even the parents managed to obtain also the internet quota provided by the government, the free internet quota. So this is still an ad hoc basis. It hasn't happened nationally around Indonesia. So it's still the advocacy for UNHCR and partners to advocate with the regulators to make sure the refugees can be registered, relaxing the requirements for refugees to be registered and have the national student ID number. Another challenge that may be faced is some local government authorities may not be familiar with the Ministry of Education circular that I mentioned that was issued in 2019. So this is something that is, we found that some government officials or even schools are not familiar, but this is something that UNHCR can do on case-by-case basis, on school-by-school, or on government level basis. We can communicate because there are many different experiences already that the refugee children has entered formal school or even private, in public or private school, both in Jakarta and throughout Indonesia. So sometimes we do find that some schools or some local Ministry of Education office may be not familiar with the regulation, and it will take us time and effort just to at least advocate for them to ensure that it's legal to have the refugee attend formal education in Indonesia. Another challenge, now this sometimes also faced by those who's already enrolled, especially during this pandemic time, where schools, you can say majority of the schools are implementing distance learning modality. And the challenge faced by the refugees are, of course, the lack of internet data or proper device to access the distance learning modality. Now, some of you who attend the formal schools supported by UNHCR and partners, of course, we are able to provide support internet data package, not only to the children, but also to the volunteer teachers who may be able to support the children also. And in some cases, we may be able to support loaning of the smart device to support the education. So this is some efforts that we've done, and we understand also similar efforts is being done by other operational partners also to support children under their support who has to go through the distance learning modality. Another education challenge, of course, is for the higher education. So you've attended year 12, you've graduated, then you want to go into the higher education or university. Now, this is something of a challenge also. The diploma, the circular note that I mentioned prior, that is more related to this one. This is much more related to primary and secondary education. Now, when it comes to higher education, unfortunately, there's no clear or written guideline on this. However, that does not mean that there's no refugee who are attending or able to attend university. The challenge they face is the same, that the formal diploma is not available because for university student, you have to be registered at the government to obtain what is called the University Student ID number or nomor induk mahasiswa. Now, what UNHCR, of course, is trying to do is to advocate similarly to the secondary and primary education, is to have the government relax the requirement to allow the refugee student to be enrolled formally and able to obtain a formal diploma. Now, while waiting for these efforts, UNHCR will be able to issue a status confirmation letter. What this status confirmation letter does is to confirm that this person is a refugee and this person is not able to receive a formal diploma, however, only a diploma issued either by the school or by the local government Ministry of Education office. And hopefully this letter or status confirmation letter from UNHCR, in addition to the diplomas that received from the school locally, can support the refugee to attend the higher education or to use that for different efforts. So in this webinar also, I noticed that there is a refugee colleague who is currently attending formal education also and higher education, and we are working to issue to support him with the status confirmation letter document that I mentioned, and hopefully this will be useful not only to him but also to other refugee who are attending different education level, either early childhood, primary, secondary, or even higher education. At least just to give strength to the document that they have received, just to let the other people who may receive the documents know that at the moment, at the time that they were enrolled, they are not able to receive a formal diploma issued by the government. But we confirm that the refugee in concern has passed the education level that is presented. Another challenge that we see, this is of course lack of Bahasa Indonesia skills. As mentioned, the education is conducted in Bahasa Indonesia, and UNHCR and partner, as I mentioned, we support in the preparation class in different Bahasa Indonesia classes. Now, this lack of Bahasa Indonesia skills is a barrier on its own, and it could be caused by different other challenges, which can be on their own challenge for refugees to attend education. One of them is the social and cultural practice. There are, of course, different cultures and practices, and some refugees' cultural and social background may limit access to education to a refugee based on their age or based on their gender. There could also be physical obstacles. Maybe the education facilities are located too far from where the currently the refugees are residing. And also psychological mindset. Some people are considering that their stay in Indonesia is temporary, thus education is not important. They may wait for education in the next place of where they're going to be, but this may take a long time for a long-term solution to find. So sometimes these are the challenges that we see for refugee to attend formal or non-formal education in Indonesia. So it will be, of course, a part of our job to continue to advocate and socialize the importance of education. As has been mentioned in the beginning, why education is important, regardless of what is the potential solution or long-term solution that the refugee may have. But education should be something that is prioritized because, of course, with education, it opens many more opportunities to offer potential solution for the refugee themselves. Of course, talking about education, it's also important to mention some other refugee education opportunities. This may not be considered as formal education, but it's worth mentioning that there are a number of refugee education or learning centers that is available in Indonesia. Of course, majority is located in Jakarta and the surrounding area. I've named or mentioned a few here, but of course there are many more refugee learning centers, learning initiatives that some of the refugees are choosing also to attend instead of or in addition to the formal or non-formal education opportunities in Indonesia. There is also, of course, Coursera. It's the free online education. It's free for refugees. As a UNHCR staff, if I want to enroll in Coursera, I have to pay. But for refugees in Indonesia, it's free to enroll as long as the refugee who is interested send an email request to UNHCR, and it will be given the invitation link to attend.
Sorry, but Hendrik, for interrupt. Just you have 5 minutes more left. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pashoki. I think I'm on the second last slide, so I think it should be good timing. Also, other refugee education opportunity is the GED diploma. Some of you may have heard about this. This is, you may recall, I mentioned in Indonesia we have our high school equivalency, diploma equivalency, which is called Packet C or Package C. So there is this US high school diploma equivalency. The test facility in Indonesia is at Sampurna University. And for refugees, some refugees are attending the GED preparation class through Roshan Learning Center. And to my knowledge, at this stage, there are already 10 GED refugee graduates who are then able to enroll into higher education, either in other country, in a third country, or through a joint classes in Indonesia. So the GED test, at the moment, UNHCR also supports the preparation test and also supports the formal test. So the preparation test, of course, is a little bit cheaper, so you can get opportunities to practice. And then once you feel that at least the teachers or facilitators feels that you are so good to attend the formal test, then you will be attending the formal test at Sampurna University. And finally, for refugees who have high school diploma, there are higher education opportunities available for refugees through the link that I'm provided here. You are able to search database of the different universities that offer education, higher education opportunities for refugees. Oops, yeah, I believe that's it, Pak Shauki. My presentation. I think the last was just a slide from UNHCR's and our standard social media pages. But from UNHCR, I hope that is clear for all the participants on the international regulations, the Indonesian domestic regulations, and also ways we support refugee for formal education, and also some challenges that we see faced by refugees and also by UNHCR and partners when it comes to enrollment in education in Indonesia. Thank you very much for the attention, and over to you, Pak Shoki. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hendrik, for a good presentation and your time and your effort. I appreciate actually that is I get some information. Actually, I hope it's very good and helpful for refugee and other people participating in Indonesia. Exactly about private schools. This is all something actually I think, and also about unit ID Indonesian number or international number. This is good news for refugee. I think at least there is 2 students they get in Makassar. That is mean we can try with government to wish government. And also I get about the challenge for refugee for formal diploma and university, but at least there is other way, as you mentioned, for attending for other education level and for exactly for GAT, AD. And thank you for the link you provided for us. We try to share. I hope everyone share with other also. I appreciate Pak Hendrik for your time and your presentation. Thank you. Just a quick reminder, if you have any question, participant, please, you can write your question below in the chat box. And also, after we finish the second presentation, you can raise your hand and ask in direct. And also, the last reminding, that it will be the session recording. And also, maybe after we finish, you can find it in YouTube. Thank you. The second speaker, it will be Ibu Tanti from Dembe Duafa. We need to hear from you. Please, the floor for you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Shauki. It is possible if someone help me to share my presentation. Okay, thank you. Is my voice listen clearly?
It's very clear.
Okay,
please
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, okay. Nice to see you guys in this webinar. In this time, I will try to share about Dompet Duafa experience on helping refugee to access formal school in Indonesia. And for the first one, I will try to introduce my organization, Dompet Duafa. Please for the next slide. Could you please go to the next slide?
Please, Pak Julio, could you help us?
Oh,
Anyone from Suaka?
okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, Dompet Duafa is an Islamic philanthropy institution that manages funds from zakat, infak, sedekah, wakaf or endowments, and other halal funds that are devoted to empowering the poor and the needs. And Dompet Duafa has four main programs such as health, economic, and education is one of them. Next. Uh, and the next slide is about School for Refugee. So since 2015, Dompet Duafa has initiated School for Refugees. Actually, at the time, it is part of response program for Rohingya refugees in Aceh. But then since 2017, Dompet Duafa
Sorry, Bu
and
Tanti. Sorry for interrupting. Your voice a little bit is not clear. Could you
okay.
make it clear? Thank you.
Okay. I think I get some connection problem. It is clear now, Pak Syauki?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Since 2017, Dompet Duafa and UNHCR tried to develop this program into a preparation program for refugee who wants to access formal education in Indonesia, especially for refugee children aged between 5 into 15. School for Refugee provide non-formal education, which aims to improve the basic competencies of refugee education, which aim to competencies of refugee and asylum seekers in Indonesia. SF School for Refugee held in two places in Tebet and Ciputat. Next. Until now, School for Refugee had initiated 5 batch School for Refugee program, and there are 120 refugee children has joined in 18 formal schools and 6 schools diploma equivalency. You can see in this presentation some of public schools that refugee join and let's go. Yeah. Next. Yeah, there is 4 main focuses of Dompet Duafa to support refugee children to be able to access formal education, such as preparing the students with School for Refugee program, and then parents meeting. Parents meeting is one of School for Refugee program also to educate the parents about how important education for their children, and we also do some advocacy to the stakeholders like government, school, local education government, etc. And then we also assist the refugee children during the schooling period. Next. Yeah, this is our support for preparing the students to join in formal school. I think the challenge it will be the same with UNHCR phase because we often do it together. Yeah, why we provide the preparation program for refugee children, because the biggest challenge is language barrier. Bahasa is the first language in Indonesian public school. It's very important to teach bahasa for the refugee children because if they can understand Indonesian language, they also can understand the lessons and they can communicate with others in formal school. Besides the languages, the refugee children also also important to understand Indonesian local culture. The refugee children have to understand what the things that can be done or the things that disallowed. So the conflict between the refugee children and the local students can be minimized. Even sometimes the conflict will happen too. School for Refugee actually has own parameters for refugee children who will be enrolled to the formal school. This parameter become important because if they can meet with the parameters, they can adapt with the school rules faster. The parameters such as they have to able to understand and they have to communicate with Bahasa Indonesia. The second, the refugee children has to have good behavior in school, and they have to attend school for refugee class 18% minimum for 6 months. School for Refugee actually held in Monday and until Thursday, and it just 2 hours for one meeting. Next. Yeah, the next challenges it come from the parents. Like Mas Hendrik said, that some of refugee parents think that learning the Indonesian language isn't as important as learning English because they will live in third country using English, not in Indonesia. And some refugee parents also think that their children do not need to join a formal school in Indonesia because they will not get a certificate from the school. And sometimes if we have success to enroll the students to the formal school, some of refugee parents don't give support for the children. So the children quit in the middle of the formal school program. And our solution is we try to ensure the parents that education isn't just about a certificate. It's about giving a normal life for the children and fulfilling their right to access education. And the first step to get that is learning the Indonesian language. So we try to ask the parents to join in the school for refugee program. The name is parents meeting. Next, the next challenge that we meet is about regulation. Same with Mas Hendrik said before. Actually, Indonesia is not a country that has ratified the Refugee Convention. Right now, the current regulations on refugee children actually not well distributed to local government. So not all local government understand about the rules, and it sometimes each region has different regulation. What we do for face this challenge is together with UNHCR and partner, and also SWACA and Jesuit Refugee Services. We do some advocating to the government to give education access for refugee children and make standards rules. And we also advocating to local government and schools to accept refugee children as their students. These local government and schools, it actually the important stakeholders because sometimes they can make their own decision. Like if the national government is not is not is not allowed the refugee children go to the public school. Sometimes we meet the local government has allowed, like in Medan case or Makassar case, like something like that. Next, we also try to find the closest school, for refugee children near around their house, so they can join the in the in the school closest with their house. The other program is giving assistance to the students because but both Indonesian children or refugee children cannot if both Indonesian children or refugee children cannot respect each other, sometimes the conflict will happen, like bullying, misunderstanding, and something like that. So SFR support does not stop when the children enroll in the school. Together with UNHCR partners, SFR providing some support to the refugee children to adapt with local children. Next. Not only to the student, we try to giving assistance to the teachers because sometimes the teachers don't know about refugee and they don't know and they don't have enough skill to teach or to handle refugee children. We try to improving their knowledge about refugees and their skills with some training. And the other challenges is about communication between the teachers and the parents. The teachers can communicate with refugee parents because some of refugee parents can not speak bahasa, or the refugee parents can speak English, but the teachers cannot speak English. So they need some assistance for both of them. And the other challenges is the teachers don't know about refugees. And actually, not just teachers, but all Indonesian people, some of them, they don't know about refugees. So we have to give some understanding about the refugee issues. Next. Yeah, these are some children of refugees that already enrolled to formal school. You can see this is Ryan, and he joined to takraw ball team, and he gets some achievement from the takraw ball team. You can see that Ryan can adapt with his local friend, and he also get achievement too. Next. Yeah, this is Rihan. She is also get achievement in formal school. from singing. Yeah, she prized as a runner-up at singing competition in her school. Yeah. So from this picture, we can learn that they also have the refugee children also have their chance to achieve goals and improving their lives and get some achievements. So it will be important for them to access education as good as she can get it. Okay, I think this is my last slide, and thank you for your attention. Back to you, Pak Sauki.
Thank you. I appreciate Ibu Tanti about good presentation. Actually, the good thing I get it actually about Riham, it's good singer from Refugee, and also there is Raban or Ramban. This guy he participate with kids in his school. This is a good thing I think. And both of you, the first speaker also speak about the challenge, the big challenge, the language, and also you share about the big challenge, the language. So from that we understand the key for refugee to get good education, and at least we can try with government and with other college or with by private way the language. Of course, even we for not education, we need the language. I appreciate this point from both of you. And also the other challenge I get from you, the communication between the teacher and the parent to deliver the information about the kids or something like that. This good thing. The good information I realized from you, there is a huge number from kids for preparation class to go to school. That is a good thing, I think, because as you know, refugees, they need it. We came from different traditional, different costs, a lot of things. Even in Indonesia, refugees very stressed, so they thinking about that. I appreciate Ibu Tanti, your presentation. So now I think if you have any question, you can still write or raise your hand. We can ask our speaker for today. They can answer direct. Let us get the good answers, good information from them. Thank you. Let us see. We starting for the question. The first question, I think, for both of you from Leah. For both speakers, some refugees arrive underage and haven't finished their basic education. Any suggestion for possible education model? For example, in Indonesia, there is our Kirja Bakti A, B, C. Please, Hendrik, could you go first if you would like about this question?
Thank you, Pak Shauki, and thank you to Ibu Lia for the question. Yes, this is in essence also the why the packet A, B, C or ABC was created, because not everyone, Indonesians or foreign nationals, are able to attend school at the certain age, at the set age of, for example, in Indonesia, based on the national education system, the basic education is from 7 years old until 15 years old. That's when you are expected to finish or attend the primary education and at least junior high school. Now, if there are children who, for example, maybe they are only 10 years old and they want to enter grade 1, it may be a challenge because depending on the regulation, maybe it's not available to attend the school, for example, at grade 1 at 10 years old. Then there is this opportunity with the packet ABC or the package ABC for the primary school or the junior high school, or for high school, senior high school diploma equivalency. And by attending this, the formal, this non-formal education facility, then the refugee, of course, will be able to have a diploma that is, according to the regulation, considered equal to the diploma that is obtained through formal education. So certainly there are already experience, and I believe Ibu Tanti has shared also in her presentation a number of refugees who attended PKBM. PKBM is one of those education facility which facilitates the classes. In some places it's called SKB. So certainly it's possible, and we of course encourage more refugees to attend, because it will be able to provide formal diploma, which can be used for many different purposes, opening many doors. Thank you, Pak Syauqi.
Thank you, Pak Hendrik, about your answering this question. Is very clear. I hope the participants, they get is very clearly your answer. Ibu Tanti, do you have any additional for this answer? Please, could you give us if you have it?
I think no, Pak Syauqi, because the PKBM is one of solutions if the refugee cannot join in junior high school. It's until now it's so difficult to refugee to join in the junior high school, I think, but some of them can join. Enough, Pak Syauqi?
Yeah, okay, thank you, appreciate. I hope that's helpful for the question for the participant. Going to the next question, actually, for both speaker also, who or what organization can be conducted to help refugee education centers? Please, Hendrik, if you would like to go first.
Thank you very much. Of course, this is from the good friend Pak Johar from Aldiar Learning Center. Of course, UNHCR, we try to support as best as we can with different activities or material support as needed. We welcome any feedback, any request that is made by the different learning center, the refugee-led initiatives, and we can see what we can do to help in terms of the different assistance. For some learning centers, we were able to provide, for example, computers, projectors, or even materials, for example, books and pens. So depending on the budget availability and on the needs of the learning center, of course, we may be able to provide the support based on the needs that has been identified and the budget availability. Over to you, Pak Syauqi.
Thank you, Hendrik. I hope Johar he gets the good answer. If Ibu Tanti, do you have any additional for that answer?
I don't have any idea who the
yes
organization who
yes,
can
because
help the support, because Dompet Duafa has not
in this
a
for
program
most of
like
you,
this.
this record, yeah, to share. Yeah, thank you. The second question from Dina, actually, does for UNHCR office, Pak Hendrik, please. Does UNHCR office have data on the number of certain asylum seeker and refugee in Indonesia? How many of them do not have access to education?
Thank you, Pak Syauqi. When it comes to data, as of September 2020, we have registered 13,870 refugees and asylum seekers in Indonesia. Now, when it comes to specifically those without education, UNHCR is currently undergoing what we call a verification process, where we try to update our data, because most of our data is based on when the time the refugee came to register with UNHCR. And as we know, many have been here for a certain time, and they may have already attended formal or informal education, which we still need to update for the different purposes, including the potential for empowerment and all other activities. So we are not able to provide any detail on how many people are without education, but based on our quick check of our database, when we look at the age group of 16 to 59, we identified that there were around 2,100 persons, refugee, without education. Now, that doesn't mean that they are still without education. Now, it could be that they have attended education but has not been recorded yet. So that's why the verification activity, which is currently being conducted virtually by UNHCR, is important to update the records, not only on the education level, but also on other skills level that maybe they have obtained while they're already in Indonesia. Thank you, Pak Soki. Back to you.
Thank you, Pak Hendrik. I hope this good answer for Ibu Dina, I think. Even as we know, there is none, even the who get educated, they don't have age or none. We need educated. All time we need educated. Thank you, Pak Hendrik. There is other question also for both of you, speaker. What are the key messages that you can prove it for Ministry of Education in regardless of the access to education for refugee in Indonesia? It seems like each province has their own policy. I think that's a good question for Pak Hendrik also. We need your answering. If you go first, please.
Thank you very much, Pak Shoki, and for the question. It is, of course, the key message from UNHCR is that refugee children or refugee has the right to education, and that's already clear within all the different domestic legislation I mentioned, and also specifically also in the 2019 circular note from the Ministry of Education. So it's usually just a matter of the local officials not familiar with the regulation that is available. And after we advocate, most of the time they agree, because at the end of the day, the concern from the government is more on who is going to pay for the school fees. Is it going to be the government through the Dana BOS, through the education system, or it will be from the refugee or from the partners organizations who are supporting refugees? So at this stage, of course, we at CERN at the national level, we of course advocate for refugee to be included into the national education system. But we understand that's going to be a challenge. But for now, refugee, if it's going through the partner organization, either UNHCR or our implementing partner or our operational partners, we will support the education. So the key message from us is to make sure that refugee has the right to education. And when the refugee enters the formal education, of course, currently it's not going to be used. We are not going to use the national education budget, although we would love to, if it's for the principle of inclusion. However, it will be the partners, UNHCR and partners, who will cover for the school fees. Maybe Ibu Tanti has some experience also in advocating for this also.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I tried to add some info. I think in 2019, Dompet Duafa, Swaka, and others organization has made some like advocation paper for education, and one of the key message about Indonesia also have a responsibility to give an access for refugee children, because even Indonesia has not ratification Refugee Convention, but Indonesia has ratified Child Protection Convention. So Indonesia has a responsibility to give access for refugee children. And There's information that should be known by the Ministry of Education is about experience in each region, like Makassar, in Medan, in Jakarta also. Even the schools allowed the refugee children to join in formal schools. I think the budget also used dana bos ya, Mas Hendrik. Some of schools.
Some schools they are able to use. Of course, we are happy. We are happy if that's possible. But most partners are also able to support. So we do not force the government to use the dana bos if they consider that's not possible. But certainly we are happy to have some governments who may be able to support based on their knowledge.
Yeah, and so some of the schools, the teacher also share their money to help refugee children to get some books, to get some needs for the school. I think in Jakarta, I think it has been happened.
Thank you. I hope Ba Adong Ramadan, you get a good answer. Before I go to next question, Ba Hendrik, I would like to give you something relative for this question. What UNHCR office they planning to do about this key actually, or there is any opportunity to push the government or the Minister of Education about the education exactly for refugee? Because you said also there is a problem for the budget. Sometimes we have a scholarship, for example, for other people, international students. So what about that? Could you give us some information? There is any opportunity for that?
Thank you, Pa Shauki. Of course, as I mentioned that there are scholarship opportunities that is available. One of the earliest one that we receive, of course, is the Columbia University scholarship for displaced students. And this opens up the door for refugees who has the proper documents to apply for the scholarship. Even as I mentioned, some of the graduates from the GED, the high school equivalency, diploma equivalency, they are also able to be enrolled at the different schools. Now, that shows that the diploma or the certification, of course, is still applicable. Now, whether all the diploma is applicable or not, now we cannot confirm. However, I can tell you that I've been in UNHCR for a while, so I graduated from a university in Indonesia without any national university diploma. When I graduated with a diploma issued by my own university, and then it's still considered valid, and I was lucky enough and able to obtain a scholarship to study in Australia at that time. So then there's always this opportunity, and as UNHCR mentioned, we recognize that there is concern whether or not the document or the diploma will be recognized or not. However, one way to, of course, to give a stronger position for you is for UNHCR to give a status confirmation letter. Basically, UNHCR to reconfirm that this person has finished the study, whether at primary school, secondary education, or even at university level. And hopefully that will also support. Now, when it comes to the leaving the country to go attend the studies at the different places, there are different mechanisms. And this is quite similar to, for example, the private sponsorship process, where some refugees are being sponsored by citizens of a different country. UNHCR, of course, will work with the embassy of that particular country and also see what is the proper arrangement for refugee to be able to go and live. So that's why if we have information about refugee, for example, successfully obtaining a scholarship in another country, please feel free to contact UNHCR, because these are case-by-case situation where we have to work separately, perhaps with the country where this the university or the school has been accepted, and also the Indonesian government on what's the best way for the person to live. And of course, there's all the different travel documents that needs to be obtained, and that cannot be generalized. It's more on case by case. So if there's any refugee who has this situation, please feel free to contact UNHCR through the community-based protection unit, and then we'll be able to provide more feedback and advice on what we can do. So whether or not this certificate can be recognized in other countries, it's certainly a possibility, and we have seen some people being accepted. So certainly we feel that it is a possible. It's a formal document, even if it's the document issued by the own school or the local Ministry of Education office. UNHCR at least supports strengthening the document, and so that's the situation. So this, I guess, also to answer the question from Ibu Yanti also about the process of the documents. It's there are different ways the refugee can live in Indonesia, and those ways we have to discuss separately with immigration, with the country of the embassy of that particular university or school. But feel free to contact us, and we'll go deeper into those discussions. I happen to be, for now, of course, the focal point for UNHCR when it comes to education. So feel free to address the questions to me, and if you have difficulty, of course, reaching UNHCR, I'm sure our colleagues from SWACA will be able to pass on the message to UNHCR. Thank you.
Thank you, Hendrik. This is very clear. I appreciate that. I hope Ibu Yanti she get this answer. Actually, I would like to go for direct question and answer. I think let us see the participant there. Maybe there is a lot of question from them. Let me check. Please, Team SWACA, help us if there is any direct question from the participant. Let us know. By the way,
Shoki, I think there is a question that our colleagues from SWACA has mentioned also. There is a question about the women attending school. I think that's always the challenge, because there has been, of course, some refugee who may have been in Indonesia for a long period of time and not being able to attend school. Now, from the Indonesian government point of view and from UNHCR and the partners' point of view, it's more about the perceptions and the acceptance of the refugee. It's UNHCR, of course, we support any person, any gender able to attend school. As we mentioned, even adults, even if you're 30 years old and you haven't finished your basic education, you are able, of course, to attend the packet A, B, C that is available in Indonesia to attend education. Some refugees, maybe because of their culture and social background, they may not be able to attend education. That is, of course, a challenge that is not only faced by refugees in Indonesia, but because this is rooted in the culture and the social background. So what UNHCR, of course, try to do with this session is, of course, is to try to educate the parents, the families, that education is important no matter the gender, because again, education opens the door. And we hope, if there are any persons who have difficulty and trying to convince perhaps their parents, try to reach out to us, and we can talk with the different community members. UNHCR, we work together also with refugee representatives, and refugee representatives, they know the community, and with their help, perhaps we can help to convince the family, the parents, that education is important, and they may allow the refugee children to attend formal education or even the non-formal education, as I mentioned. I think that's it from from my side, and unless there's anything else to add from Mbak Tanti.
Okay, I think there are some education for women that UNHCR provide in Tebet, ya, Mas Hendrik, and it's open for all refugee. But sometimes the information not distributed well, I think. So I think they don't have enough information about the program. But for the next program, Dompet Duafa collaborated with CWS will provide education for women, and she can join for the next program. Thank you.
That is a good, actually, information from you. I'm going to ask you about any activity for women exactly. What Dompet Duafa do for refugee women in Indonesia? There is any program? This question for Dompet Duafa and also for Mbak Hendrik exactly. Could you, Ibu Tanti, going first to answer this question if you have any information about that?
Yeah, for the next program of Dompet Duafa and CWS, we will provide vocational schools, and the beneficiaries is special for refugee women. And I think it will be held on 2021. Thank you, Pak Shauki.
Please, Mbak Hendrik, if you have any additional.
Yeah, as mentioned, of course the challenge, of course, is to get refugee women not only interested but also, for example, the families or parents interested. So I think the important advocacy is also here to be done with the community, and together we can organize perhaps different community meetings to encourage refugee and especially refugee women, of course, to be involved in formal education. So it is something that is going to be also a focus of UNHCR to have more opportunities for women to attend and universities. And this relates to the different question that has come up from the YouTube and also from Zoom. Okay, so now I have the high school diploma. I've attended the year 12. Now can I attend the university in Indonesia? What's the procedure? Attending university, of course, it's a challenge, but it's not impossible. As I mentioned, we do have one. I know there are many, but we do have one colleague here who is attending the meeting, who is attending at the moment a university. Now this. The colleague here happens to be supported by a foundation to enroll in the university, and that's basically how we suggest is, if you are interested in a particular university, please find out the university whether or not they are able to accept you or not. Of course, at this stage, UNHCR and partners, we don't have funding to provide education for refugee in higher education. UNHCR support and partners support
Hendrik, about this question.
Yeah, for basic and secondary, but we can certainly help to find if there's any scholarship opportunities, because there are different charities who may be looking at how they can support refugees, and we can introduce, for example, refugees to the different charity or different organization who may be able to support. But the first step is needs to be done by the refugee themselves. Identify the potential university, make the communication, and then if the university asks some questions on the legality, can pass on to UNHCR, and we can establish a dialogue with the university and to see what's the challenge for the university can do. UNHCR, of course, we can give a status confirmation letter to confirm that the person is a refugee. But as I mentioned in the beginning, currently in Indonesia, there's no written guideline or circular note when it comes to refugee attending higher education. So again, this is more case-by-case basis. Where is there any refugee in university? Yes, at both level, at master's and bachelor's degree, but everything happens on case-by-case. There's no consistent regulation that is available. And at this stage, most university, including the ones that I approached personally when I was working in Kupang, they still use the standard regulation for foreign nationals, which means you need to have a student visa, you need to have some letters from Indonesian embassy and all that. But it doesn't mean it's impossible, because a number of refugees has shown that they are able to be enrolled at university. However, it's just going to be a little bit more challenging. So this is, for example, this is going to be something that we have to work on case-by-case basis. So this is to, my apologies if I mentioned the name wrong, Bartele in Zoom, and also some question also from YouTube when it comes to education at higher level. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Hendrik. Actually, to be honest, this question related for these issues, I would like to ask about it. As I know, there is many chance from university in Indonesia, like scholarship, to prove it for other people. So if a refugee can get this chance, UNHCR office can help them complete scholarship, for example. Just sometimes I ask him if you have any recommendation from your embassy. So I don't have embassy because I'm refugee. Just I have UNHCR office. Could you help them, like University of ETB, like Malang? There is many university I know. And the second question related for that, if refugees they get scholarship, they get master degree or HB, the HB. So from my private, can I get any certificate from this university in the end or no? Please answer this question if you would like.
Thank you, Pak Shauki. Of course, as mentioned and based on experience, the current practice or regulation is that the refugee, since most, if not all, studying at university are not registered to have the national university student ID number, they will only be getting a localized certificate issued by their own university. Now, this is something that, of course, UNHCR is trying to work on to get more formal, a formal registration to get the diploma. However, again, as for the primary and secondary, it's still a challenge. It's going to even be more challenge when it comes to the higher education. But if you ask about whether there's going to be a diploma, to our knowledge, yes, there will be a diploma, but the diploma will be issued by the own university. Now, whether or not you can accept this or not, that goes back to you, and whether or not you think this is sufficient. Because at this level, most of the studies, of course, you will be doing based on from your own expenses. Or if you are lucky enough to be able to find a scholarship partner, of course, then they can provide scholarship. If you ask my point of view, if there is someone who is able to provide you scholarship, I think it's an opportunity that you should not skip. At the end of the day, whether you get a diploma issued formally by the government or a diploma from a university, your studies is already covered, and it's going to open opportunities and doors for you. Whether or not UNHCR can support partial scholarship, for example, there is an example currently, a refugee who is attending private school with a partial scholarship, and then UNHCR is going to support with the additional or partial school fees. So that kind of thing is possible. That's why when I mention about education, sometimes this is case by case. If you identify something, let us know, and we can say whether it's can be done or not. Now, the different level of certificates that you will receive from the schools, you can check. For example, from the colleague who is attending a private university here, who is attending the meeting, he received a year 12 or a high school certificate from his school, and including the what we call transcript nilai. like the scores or the marks, for the studies. So they do receive that. So there are different opportunities. It's good for you to before attending the school, of course, to understand what you can get or what you cannot get. And UNHCR can, of course, help you in communicating with the university or the school to understand what you can get or what you cannot get. So that is something that you can do. At the moment, we hope this can be regularized. However, as mentioned, there's no fixed regulation, especially for higher education. This will be done mostly in case-by-case basis. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mas Hendrik, for the answer. Okay, it seems that Pak Shauki have trouble with the audio. Pak Shauki, are you still there? Okay, it seems that he is still lost. Okay.
Thank you, Hendrik, for your question. And sorry for technicality. But Hendrik, actually, there is question also related for these issues. Both of you and Ibu Tanti, what about certificate? Any kind of certificate for women or for a student or for children? As we know, if you get certificate, you get service country, or you return your country, they will asking about your documentary from the country you came in. So there is any possible to refugee documentary the certificate from the minister? Hello.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Shauki.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, from Dompet Duafa experience, I'm sure Ibu Tanti can explain. But in general, as mentioned, that there will be refugee who attend formal education in Indonesia. They will receive a certificate. Either it's from the school themselves or from the local Ministry of Education. So UNHCR recognizing that not all countries, including the country of origin, may recognize what is the certificate. That's why I mentioned that UNHCR can support in giving a status confirmation letter, which of course clarify that the person is or was a refugee and the person has attended this level of education. So that's hopefully with this confirmation letter from UNHCR to support the existing certificates or documents received by the refugee during the different level of studies, it can give some strength to the document itself. And for of course the advocacy, the lobbying, that's a continuous activity. It's not a one-off. It's something that UNHCR does in conjunction together with our different partners, because we all have the same view that refugee education for refugees is a right. Now we're just trying to see if there's a way to eliminate barriers for refugee to enter education. And that's something that general commitment is there. Now we just need to have the government translate that into regulation that makes it easier for everyone to implement this law. That is from my side. Perhaps Ibu Tanti has some additional comments on this.
Thank you, but Hendrik, please, Ibu Tanti, if you have any additional, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have met with the refugee children that get certification for PKBM in Jakarta, and I also meet with the refugee children that get formal school certificate, Mas Hendrik, in Ciputat. Yeah, Pak Shauki, I think that.
Thank
So
you, Ibu Tanti.
yeah.
Yep. Thank you for your answering. I appreciate that. That's, I think, the last question for our webinar today. I wanna thank you, both of you, our speaker, and also appreciate every answer from you and good information provided for today about the optical information of education, formal education, and also about how to access education for refugee children in Indonesia. I think this very important information we needed for all of us. I hope we'll meet you again for next webinar. And I appreciate also Team Suaka for every time support refugee and raise awareness about the rights and about the education and other issues. I appreciate whatever I said. I cannot give you what you deserve. And also thank you for our participant for today. I appreciate that. Thank you, all of you. Before we go for clothing, we need to take picture together for archive. Just if you would like, please turn your video to take picture together. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, if the participant would like to take picture together, I would like to invite to turn on your videos and I will take the picture. Okay, seems like everybody already stand by. 1, 2, again, once again, 1, 2. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Zico, for technicality, and thank you for other team from Suaka. That is the end for our webinar today. See you another time. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Bah Hendrik.
Thank you, Pak Shauki. Always good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ibu Tanti. Thank you, Suaka team.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Shauki and Soka team. Thank you, Pak Hendrik.
Thank you. Oh, Pak Bartele, good to see you.
For Suaka team and the resource person and the volunteers, please stay for the debriefing. Thank you.
Pak Johar, good to see you. Thank you.
Zico, are we still live on YouTube?